computer.
All right. Well, I would like to call to order the Community and Economic Development Committee meeting for Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. Can I get a roll call, please?
Chair Lovell,
Here.
Vice Chair Hodges,
Here.
Councilmember Pryor,
Here.
Councilmember Rader,
Present.
and Planning Commissioner Funk. Oh, I guess that's, never mind. Okay,
Oh,
we have a quorum.
Oh, yeah. I guess we'll have to find a replacement for him.
yeah.
Gosh, guy gets in city council and just no-shows us on the CEDC. Gosh.
Well, maybe Dana will come back and be our liaison.
Well, we're okay either way. All right. Well, I would look for a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Chair, I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Vice Chair Hodges,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Rader,
Aye.
Chair Lovell.
Aye. I'll take us into public comments. Do we have any public comments?
I have
Chair,
a
we
quick
did not
question.
receive. Oh,
I got an email. Is there a way that somebody that's a citizen can join this meeting?
Yeah, it's clerk@cityofls.net. If they needed to reach out to the clerk before the meeting to get a link. And then otherwise it is being recorded. It'll be posted tomorrow or probably uploaded tomorrow to the website.
Okay, she did not reach out to anybody. So is it too late for her to join?
Probably. Just the clerk would have to reach out to her. I got texted. Was it Donna Gordon?
Yes.
Okay. Well, she reached out to me too. I sent her the link a long time ago if she wanted to be on it. So I'm assuming she just chose to wait for the download.
Okay.
And if she has any questions afterwards, after the meeting is recorded and she watches, just happy to answer anything for her as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. So do we have any public comments?
no, we do not.
Okay. Well, that'll take us right into business. So we've got item A 2025-6708, approval of the January 8, 2025 Community and Economic Development Committee action letter. I'd look for a motion there.
Chair, I make a motion to approve the last
The committee action letter.
committee action letter. Thank you.
Okay, a second. Anybody?
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, second.
Okay, that's all right. All right, got a motion to approve the committee action letter from Councilmember Rader, second by Councilmember Hodges. Can I get a vote, please?
Councilmember Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Rader,
Aye.
Chair Lovell,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hodges.
Aye.
All right, that will take us into the next item, 2024-6677, presentation analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. And presenter Jessica Fish with Mosaic Community Planning and Amy Nassif.
Yes,
Take
thank
it away.
you very much. Thanks. I am Amy Nassif, Interim Director of Development. I'm just going to do a real brief overview for everyone before we hand it over to our consultant. And so let me sending a request to share my screen here. And so hopefully, since I don't think many of you have gone through this process with us before, thought this would be helpful before we get started here. So screen 2. And there we go. So everybody can see my screen okay? Yep. So great. So this is part of our Community Development Block Grant Program. And so I know we just had some great discussion what we're going to do with our housing goals and how that process will work yesterday. And even though our Community Development Block Grant is part of our housing efforts, this is a completely separate process, separate resources, separate goals, and separate funding that we've done for many, many years in the city. And so brief overview is how the program works. So the Community Development Block Grant is something so if you are an entitlement community, local governments that meet certain criteria for funding through HUD, then you qualify for this program. And we get annual allocations. And those funding amounts are going to depend on population size, poverty levels, housing conditions. Typically, when we've done this every year, we do get around $350,000. That's not a guarantee, and we don't get a certain dollar amount that we ask for. It's just the dollar that we're given every year. And so with that and being an entitlement community, each then community we have the authority to decide how then those CDBG funds are going to be used. And so that's how the local governments consult with the community members and the stakeholders, and we determine how we're going to use those funds. So the projects or programs that can be funded through CDBG are ones that benefit low and moderate income individuals. And this is going to be what 100% of our projects are typically going towards. But it can also be used to fund or eliminate slums or blight, or also address like an urgent community need, such as if there's like a natural disaster or something. But again, 100% of our program funding goes towards benefiting low and moderate income families. And so all of the work that the CDBG does to promote and do through our housing initiatives, again, it does align with the comprehensive Ignite plan also, which is really important to us to helping increase the overall property values by neighborhood, and also preserve and protect housing stock are just a few of those goal areas. So what are some current funding programs that we have? We currently fund Lee Summit Social Services, Hope House, Hillcrest, Coldwater, and have a home repair assistance program with Truman Habitat and the Housing Authority as well. And so then we get into what are our requirements as being a recipient, as an entitlement community here. So every 5 years, we're required by HUD to develop and adopt a strategic plan known as a consolidated plan. And so our last one was done in 2020. We also every single year have an annual action plan. And so that's like a reporting requirement. So we report on everything we've been doing for that year. And so what we're doing here tonight with you is like our third requirement, which again is only every 5 years, but it's called an analysis of impediments to fair housing. And so what that is we hire a consultant, and every 5 years they help us, and they do community engagement and research, and they examine from all those resources and areas, what are the obstacles to fair housing in Lee Summit? And then this becomes a component or a piece of our reporting requirements with our consolidated plan. And all this has to be done by May. And so I'll show you a little timeline that we have too. So from our last AI, or analysis of impediments, there were things in that last one about affordable housing for homeowners and renters, public transportation. And so this slide just kind of shows you some things where we have had some success, and we did complete some things from our last plan. And so really what we are is like the timeline right now. So tonight we have our presentation of the draft AI to you all, and then we'll just ask if you have any questions or anything that you need clarification on or any feedback from you. And then in March, we do return with the draft of the bigger portion of this, which is the consolidated plan. And that's also when all of the agencies like Hillcrest and Hope House and Lee Summit Social Services, they make an application every year to get funding from CDBG funds through us. So they come to the next meeting in March also and present, what they want to do and what their ask is. And then through all that, then we take that information. There's another public input process that takes about 30 days. And then we send the full report to City Council. So those are the steps that were required through as part of our agreement through HUD. And so wanted to help, hopefully that helps and gives you a little bit of feedback and information before then I'm going to turn over to our consultant, Jessica Fish, who's with Mosaic Community Planning Group, and she's going to run through the draft AI for you.
Great. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions before she gets started? I don't see any. All right, let's go with it.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me tonight. We've been working with the city on these plans for more than a year at this point. Community engagement, drafting of the plans and everything. So excited to be at the point of presenting to you tonight. So I'll go through a little bit about our community engagement process and then go over a little bit about what's included in the analysis of impediments. So the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice is focused on assessing equal access to housing as set forth in the Civil Rights and Fair Housing Acts, which protect a person's right to own, sell, purchase, or rent housing of their choice without fear of unlawful discrimination. In addition to combating discrimination, recipients of HUD funds are also required to take meaningful actions to both overcome patterns of segregation in the community and foster communities that are inclusive, free from barriers restricting access to opportunity based on federally protected characteristics or classes. And these federally protected characteristics listed here: race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, or whether someone has children, and disability. So a little bit about our community engagement process. The project website, lsconplan.com, has been kind of the host of all of the information about the plans. We hosted our community survey there as well. You could find meeting information about the community engagement meetings that we held. Folks could express interest in participating in focus groups there as well. So just kind of a hub for everything was there. We held a housing and community needs survey that got 243 respondents. So that was hosted on the project website. Folks could also come to the city's office and take in person as well. We held 2 community workshops, so one in person and one virtual, just to give a number of opportunities for folks to participate. We held stakeholder interviews with folks working in different areas of concern to both the consolidated plan and the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. So in areas like housing, community services, homelessness, things like that. We also held 2 residents focus groups with Lee's Summit Cares and Habitat for Humanity, just to get in touch with specific groups of residents who may have been less likely to attend a community meeting or maybe participate in the survey and things like that, just to make sure we're getting groups involved. A little bit about our timeline. We held most of our community engagement and data gathering was January through May of last year. We developed the draft plans from April of last year and just kind of wrapping that up in February this month. You'll be able to download, read, and comment on the draft plans at the project website. That's lsconplan.com, starting in March through April of this year. And then the consolidated plan and annual action plan will be finalized and approved through both the City Council and HUD, and that'll be in May of 2025. So a little bit about what the analysis of impediments includes. It's got an analysis of the local fair housing landscape, so looking at what resources are available, diving into complaint data, litigation specific to Lee's Summit. It's also going to look at 4 specific fair housing issues, so integration and segregation, looking at are people segregated in the community by some of those protected class factors that we talked about: race, ethnicity, national origin, disability, things like that. Areas of poverty in the community. So is poverty clustered in specific areas, and how does that overlap with issues of integration and segregation? Access to opportunity. So do folks have access to a lot of things that they need on a day-to-day basis? Things like employment, education, transportation, clean and healthy environments, things like food and health care in the community. And it's also diving into housing needs. So are households experiencing housing cost burden, spending more than 30%, more than 50% of income on housing costs. Also looking at issues like overcrowding and housing quality as well. And from all of that and our community engagement as well, we developed fair housing priorities and goals for the city and related recommendations. And that's part of what we're looking to get folks feedback on. A little bit about our community survey results. We had a survey about fair housing, also about kind of housing and community development needs related to the consolidated plan. So when asked about barriers to fair housing in Lee's Summit, residents and stakeholders emphasized a lack of supply of affordable and accessible housing in the city. Here you can see kind of some of the top responses, not enough affordable housing for families, seniors, individuals. Respondents also indicated need to reduce opposition to affordable housing and limit displacement of residents due to rising housing costs. So a lot around the theme of housing affordability, not surprisingly, coming up as a barrier to fair housing. You can see kind of the other less common ones, definitely limited access to good schools. Very few people indicated that as a barrier. So you can kind of compare all the different ones as well. Segregation and integration. So we looked at that through mapping and data analysis, as well as talking to community members. Overall levels of segregation by race and ethnicity within Lee's Summit are low due to the city's predominantly white population. However, there are higher levels of segregation within the region as a whole. You can see in this map, it's population by census tract for where people are living. So you can see the clustering of the orange, the white population, where one dot is 100 people, kind of within the city of Lee's Summit. Black and Hispanic populations, which is the green and blue dots, are clustered west of Lee's Summit and in Kansas City, pointing to some barriers to accessing housing in Lee's Summit for these populations. We also look at access to opportunity. So different factors related to opportunity, like access to high quality schools and education, access to jobs and employment, transportation, including public transportation, vehicle access, walkability, healthy environments, so access to parks as well as locations of toxic facilities and things like that. And then access to low poverty neighborhoods. So you'll see a lot of maps like this. Here's the like school quality index, and you can see here, as we heard from most residents as well, that very high levels of school quality across Lee's Summit in general, and kind of lower rankings to the west of the city. So that was kind of neat to see how what we hear from folks aligns with the data and the mapping as well. Housing supply summary, we look at just what the housing in Lee's Summit looks like, kind of housing types, age of housing, and things like that. So single family detached homes are the predominant housing type across the city, county, and metro, a little bit more predominant in Lee's Summit, making up 73% of housing units. And I think that's gone down slightly in recent couple of years. The high shares of single family detached structures may pose some limitations on residents in obtaining housing and units of other housing types that are just less common in the city, but that may provide for opportunities for increased affordability. So you can see that units with 2 to 4 units, so duplexes to quadruplexes, make up about 5% of housing in the city, and small multifamily units with 5 to 19 units make up about 7% of housing. So just looking at kind of how that divides up across the city. We also look at housing needs. So these are just a list of the housing problems identified by HUD. So housing cost burden is when housing costs exceed 30% of a household's monthly income, or severe cost burden more than 50% of income. We look at overcrowding and lacking complete kitchen or plumbing facilities as well. So looking at those, we look at how those vary across population groups. So here, 33.9% of Black households in the city have at least one of the four housing problems, compared to just 21.3% of all households in Lee Summit. So some disparities across population and housing needs. And we also see a 41.5% of non-family households. So that would be individuals or individuals living with roommates in Lee Summit experience at least one housing problem. So from all this, we look at impediments to fair housing choice, and these are kind of gone into more depth in the report, but we looked at limited supply of affordable housing for low and moderate income households, a lack of housing and services to address homelessness, a limited supply of accessible housing for people with disabilities, limited incomes and lack of access to resources restrict housing choice among protected classes, and a lack of resources and coordination for fair housing outreach, education, and enforcement activities that limits residents' access to fair housing services. So these are gone into more depth in the report, which I hope you'll dive into too. But we have we have a table of contributing factors related to each impediment, as well as recommended activities and goals. So this is an example for the impediment of limited supply of affordable housing. So just some of the contributing factors, goals that we hope the city would consider, and then relevant city partners, so organizations, agencies, residents, and stakeholders partnering in these activities as well. So we'd love to get your feedback on these, and it'll be kind of an iterative process with us making edits before the version is finalized. So let's see. Again, all the information is going to be available at the project website. It's lsconplan.com, and starting in March, you'll be able to download the plan there and leave comments through the website. You can also leave comments in person at the city's office, or email us directly, info@mosaiccommunityplanning.com. And so we look forward to hearing from you tonight as well. And thank you for having me for the presentation.
Thanks, Jessica. And then we'll also have a link and information on this on the Development Services webpage as well, if anybody would like to access it that way too and provide public input.
Chair.
Yeah, just sorry I'm squirming around. I still got that leg pain, so I'm kind of up and down in my seat if you see me moving a lot on the camera. Anyway, yes, Councilmember Hodges.
So I just had a couple of questions. So on the LS Con plan, you mentioned that there was going to be, I think you said from March to April, that it can be commented on and people can look at it. Did that mean like it's open for the community, or did you just mean council members, or what is that going to look like?
It's everyone. It's the full community.
Okay.
It's anyone who would like to, and we would welcome and like as much feedback as possible from the full community on it.
Okay, great. And then also, I'm assuming that will probably be put out on like social media so people are made aware. And okay.
Yes.
And then what is, and maybe I missed this in this, but what is the end result and the intended outcome from that plan exactly? What are we hoping to accomplish with that plan? What's the main thing that we're hoping to get out of this?
Yeah. So HUD requires us to develop a plan so that we can show just what actions we're doing, basically, that we have looked at the housing needs in our community, that we've done public engagement and what action steps we take towards fair housing in our community. And so that's part of our requirements in order to keep our CDBG program funding. So the recommendations that are in the draft AI now and that will be in the final, those are not, you must do all these items. It's just, hey, you know what, some contributing factors, for instance, are that you don't have lots of missing middle or workforce housing. You might want to try these things. So it might be that those things work for us, or we might find another avenue to help do some of those things. And a lot of items that that we've heard from the community are items that, you know, we've been talking about with council as well. And some things we've already even done. So it's pretty good. So there's lots of alignment already. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. So you're
Okay.
just saying HUD's wanting to make sure we're at least identifying issues in the community, not necessarily that we have to implement them, but at least we're aware.
That we are aware and that we are taking some steps, yes. But we don't have
Some
to do
steps.
100% of everything or solve housing every, you know, for the time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then
Mhm.
one last question, on the community survey results, I didn't see where it was mentioned. I know we kind of struggle getting people to actually participate. How many people took that survey? I was just curious.
I think it was 230 people,
230.
231. Was that right, Jessica?
It was 243.
243. I was close.
Okay.
And are those-
243.
Are
Yeah.
those all Lee Summit residents?
Jessica, can you answer that for us?
So it was open to just the general public. So that would be, you know, people living or working in Lee Summit, stakeholders related to Lee Summit with an interest. So it wasn't excluding anyone, but we did have a question for what zip code folks are coming from. So that'll all be available in the survey results as well.
Okay. Sorry, I did have one more question. So this is just my curiosity. On presentations like this, I find it odd that on one of the slides it said, I'm trying to find out where, I think it said something to the effect of 33% of Black households were burdened by at least, I think, one of the four. I guess my question is, why do we only pick out the Black? Like, why don't you say Asians? Why don't you say Mexicans? Like, I guess I'm just confused. I've been curious. Why do we only pick out Black?
Oh yeah, of course. So there is more discussion of other groups in the report, but this group was just the highest level of housing need identified. So it was just comparing the population with the highest level of housing need to the overall level and just showing the disparity there. So yeah.
But everything else is in the full report. We were just giving
Yeah, so it's a
snapshots.
table and it shows all the races and ethnicities that are included in the comprehensive.
Okay. Yeah, I would prefer that just because I
housing
feel like
map.
we're
Sure.
picking one race and saying, well, we're just focusing on the, I don't know. It seems odd when I'm looking at a presentation, but no, I just was curious. So thank you for answering that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair,
Ms. Rader?
thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Hodges. You asked all my questions. But I wanted to say one more thing about the survey. Where did you send out the survey? And when did you send out the survey?
So I'll turn that one over to Jessica too. We did that, I think it was last year, it was in 2024, because we've been working, because this plan is very big and robust, so it started over a year ago.
Yeah, it said it was January to May of 24.
Yeah, so I can let Jessica speak to all the social media stuff that we did do. But the new survey that we do, like I said, we will be having on our website. We'll be working with Creative Services on sending it out to all the community, our Facebook, all of our social media feeds that we have. Really want to get a lot of feedback from the community, from our Lee Summit residents and Lee Summit property owners for sure. But Jessica, can you talk a little bit more in depth about the last survey?
Yeah, so we worked with the city to develop a list of more than 60 stakeholders. So it would have been sent out to those stakeholders who are working with community organizations and agencies and and groups like that to share with their with the people they work with. We also developed just some social media posts and flyers that the city could share through its social media accounts. And so we ended up getting pretty good traction with the survey with almost 250 responses. But those were it would all would have also been shared through the public notice about the meetings. So that would have shared the website and the survey as well. So several kind of different means that we do that.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, so we're going to do another survey, and that'll be great because I think we're getting really good at we're getting better and better and better at the city with our social media efforts. So yeah, that's great. And then I think as council members, it would be a good idea for us to also announce these kinds of things at our council meetings, that we're going to be doing surveys. So people that are watching will know that, yes, that's out there as well, and to make sure our constituents know. So we get a really good idea of what people are feeling about what's going on with our housing here.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you
Chair.
for your help.
I actually have one question, but sorry, I had to run outside because I heard kids screaming. So, but so how much does all of this, like the amount of money that we're putting in, looking at all of this and sending out surveys and everything else, does that counteract the amount of funding we're actually getting for
No, not
we
at all.
spend more than what we get?
No, we get a very the amount. This reporting is only due every 5 years.
Okay.
So the bulk of the work is done by staff internally. Yeah.
Okay.
And for the last several years, the money that we've been getting has been really meaningful to all the local agencies, and it's been around $350,000 every year.
Okay. Do we have any clue how much we spend on all the surveys and everything else?
That just all gets wrapped in with our consultant fee. That's like the every 5 year. It's not anywhere close, I will tell
Okay.
you. And a lot of stuff that's being done too, digitally and everything too. There's not like the hard copy mailers like you used to have quite as much
Okay. That's
either. So, and
okay.
Ryan.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Councilmember Pryor, I can add a little bit to that. When about every time we analyze this particular question, a good way that we kind of equate it is it's about a 25% match from the city is what it kind of equates to end up being. So if you think of like our other federal cost share programs, essentially that's not technically the same thing, but essentially every year we spend about 25%. We invest those dollars and then we get 75% on top of that as a return. So that's kind of a way that we look at it.
Oh, sorry, I had you guys on mute. Sorry about all of the kids. But thank you.
Is that it, Ms. Pryor?
Yes.
I don't know if you can go back on that slide, but there was a point in there about homeless. I don't know if you could go back to that slide. There we go. Lack of housing and services to address homelessness. And this is one of your findings in the first report. Is that correct?
Yes, correct, Jessica.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was through surveying?
Yeah, that would have been a combination of the survey, our stakeholder interviews, as well as like what we heard in the community meetings.
Okay. So what kind of housing would that, like lack of housing for the homeless? Is that meaning like we don't have shelters or we don't have houses that homeless could afford? Or I'm just trying to get a little more clarification on that as an actual impediment. So like if this is one of our impediments to the fair housing choice, I'm just curious. I'm trying to get a little more detail on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let me see if I can pull up that one.
Yeah, and while you're pulling it up, Jessica, I think if I can help too, it doesn't necessarily mean, and none of the results said, hey, we need a homeless shelter or anything. It was more of the lack of services of, is there more to do, more that could be done with, like, say, maybe the transitional housing, like Hope House and Hillcrest and things that do provide those services. And one of the other findings was, is there a way to get more information out there about where resources can be found? And that could be help with food or help with paying a mortgage or paying your rent to avoid being homeless, or even where to find resource information to get in touch if you don't know about Hope House or Hillcrest or things like that too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And are you looking for, like, you're not looking for us to take action on this right now, right? This is, we're not moving something up to council right now, correct?
Correct. This was just our draft and wanted to get any feedback or questions that you had on the draft tonight, and then we'll be back next month.
So I think just important things as especially if we're going to present this, I think Councilmember Hodges hit on it. I think it's important to know how many surveys were taken. I think it's important to know, I would think that it'd be more people that live in Lee Summit, but like when you say like stakeholders or, I'd like to know, I think it would be important to know who's taking these surveys. And in my opinion, it should be people in Lee Summit. So if it's skewed heavily with outside of Lee Summit respondents, I think that's an important piece of the data that we need to understand. I think if we're going to break it down by race, I think it's important to break down all races. I think it's important to know, like if you say 33%, of Blacks, I think where we have to be real careful is taking data that is somehow like correlation does not necessarily mean causation, right? And so I think it's important that when we look at the data, that we have the full picture there so that we can make good decisions on what we're trying to accomplish with this. And so especially, it jumps out as some sort of narrative that it's racially not necessarily motivated, but that there's some racial divide there. And I just want to make sure that if we're putting stuff out there, that we're covering all the different ethnicities, and we have really good data on the number of surveys, where these surveys were coming from. And I think that will help us kind of frame what we're trying to accomplish, when it is time to make that decision.
Sure. Thank you.
Hey, Chair, I just had one quick thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just wanted to, Amy, you hit on a point that I remember we talked about a while ago when you mentioned putting services, making sure services, the education of them were out there to people who needed them. I know for a little while we had discussed the city having some sort of, I don't know, outreach, not an outreach, but like some sort of something, whether it was online or the app or something that was a resource where it's like, oh no, you can just go here, find all resources available. Did we ever do anything like that to where everything's kind of in one spot and easy to access?
Yeah, so we did just recently update that page with our Communities for All Ages plan. So there's a great, we updated our resource page for that, and it has a whole host of resources on it. And we actually are working with Eastern Jackson County Department of Health on creating how can we do, just a lot of communities are getting together on how can we create that one single kind of resource page too. And then the next 2 months, we're working with Truman Habitat to do some big community outreach and provide those resources for our home repair program.
Okay, so we are kind of working on a resource hub,
yes.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for answering that.
Oh, you're welcome. So yeah, it's great because some of these things that the consultant is finding are things like, yep, we know it, we're on top of it, or things are already kind of in progress.
Does anybody have anything else? I'm trying to pull my agenda back up there we go. Any other comments or anything else for the presenter? Any questions? All right. In that case, Jessica, thank you so much for your time and your presentation. We appreciate it. Look forward to further steps on this. I'll take us to roundtable. Does anybody have anything for roundtable? I'll take that as a no. All right. Well, with that being said, oh, did somebody have something? Okay. Well, with that being said, we'll adjourn this meeting at 4:39 p.m. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.